The sun cast a golden hue over the dusty streets of Redemption Creek as Bianca Voss clutched the crumpled letter in her trembling hands. The journey from Boston to this remote Wyoming town had taken 3 months longer than expected, each passing day dimming her hopes that Isaac Ryder would still be waiting for her. Now, standing before the weathered homestead with its crooked fence and faded paint, she feared the worst. Bianca smoothed the wrinkles from her travel-worn dress, adjusting her bonnet to shield her eyes from the harsh afternoon sun of August 1873. 6 months ago, she had been a seamstress in Boston with dwindling prospects and mounting debts after her father's passing. The advertisement in the newspaper had seemed like Providence, a cattle rancher in Wyoming territory seeking a bride, promising a life of purpose and possibility. Their letters had flowed steadily for months. Isaac's penmanship was rough, but his words were thoughtful and kind. She had packed her meager belongings and set off west, only to have her journey derailed by illness in Chicago, railroad delays, and finally, a stagecoach accident that left her stranded in a small settlement for weeks while her ankle healed. The door to the homestead creaked open, and Bianca held her breath. A tall man with broad shoulders and sun-weathered skin emerged, squinting against the light. His brown hair was slightly overgrown, and his beard was neatly trimmed. He wore simple clothes, a cotton shirt with the sleeves rolled up and denim pants tucked into well-worn boots. "Can I help you, madam?" His voice was deep, cautious. Bianca stepped forward, her heart hammering in her chest. "Mr. Ryder? Isaac Ryder?" The man's expression changed, confusion followed by slow recognition. "You're Bianca? Bianca Voss?" She nodded, relief washing over her. "Yes, I apologize for my tardiness. There were complications during my journey and, madam," he interrupted, his voice gentle but firm, "I received word that you weren't coming. After 4 months with no arrival and no correspondence, I assumed." He trailed off, looking uncomfortable. Bianca felt the blood drain from her face. "I sent letters explaining my delay. 3 of them. Never received one," he said, his eyes softening with sympathy. "Miss Voss, I don't quite know how to tell you this, but—" A woman's voice called from inside the house. "Isaac? Who is it?" A pretty, dark-haired woman appeared in the doorway, a baby balanced on her hip. Her smile faltered as she took in the scene before her. "This is Bianca Voss," Isaac explained, and Bianca watched as understanding dawned on the woman's face. "Oh," the woman said softly. "The mail-order bride." Isaac nodded, turning back to Bianca with regret etched across his features. "This is my wife, Martha. We were married 6 weeks ago." The world seemed to tilt beneath Bianca's feet. After everything, the journey, the hardships, the hope that had sustained her, she had arrived too late. Her future had been claimed by another. "I see," she managed, though her voice sounded distant to her own ears. "I should have sent word through telegraph. I apologize for the intrusion." "Miss Voss," Isaac said, stepping forward with concern. "You look exhausted. Please come in and rest. We can discuss what to do." Martha nodded in agreement. "You must be famished after your journey." Bianca wanted nothing more than to flee, to hide her humiliation and despair, but exhaustion and hunger won out. She nodded gratefully and followed them inside. The cabin was modest but clean, with simple furnishings and the smell of fresh bread in the air. Bianca sat at the wooden table while Martha prepared a plate of bread, cheese, and dried apples. Isaac poured her a cup of coffee, the awkwardness between them palpable. "Where are your things?" Martha asked, noticing Bianca had only a small carpetbag. "At the stagecoach office," Bianca replied. I wanted to make sure I was in the right place before retrieving them." Isaac looked pained. "Miss Voss, I feel terrible about this situation. If I'd known you were still coming—" "Please," Bianca interrupted, unable to bear his guilt. "You had every reason to believe I wasn't coming. I don't blame you for moving forward with your life. Still," Isaac said, "I promise you a home, and I aim to help you find one." Redemption Creek isn't a large town, but there are good people here. We'll figure something out. As they spoke, the door opened, and a man stepped inside without knocking. He was tall and lean, with dusty clothes and a weathered cowboy hat pulled low over his eyes. "Isaac," he said, "that stray bull of yours is in my south pasture again, terrorizing my—" He stopped abruptly when he noticed Bianca. "Ian, this is Miss Bianca Voss," Isaac said. "Miss Voss, this is Ian Reynolds, my neighbor and the most stubborn rancher in the territory." Ian removed his hat, revealing tousled dark blonde hair and striking blue eyes. He nodded politely. "Madam, Miss Voss came from Boston," Martha explained, her tone careful. She was supposed to be Isaac's bride, but her journey took longer than expected. Understanding dawned in Ian's eyes, and he looked at Bianca with newfound interest. She felt heat rising to her cheeks under his scrutiny and dropped her gaze to her half-eaten meal. "What will you do now?" Ian asked directly. I haven't had time to consider my options," Bianca admitted. "I suppose I'll need to find work and lodging in town. Or perhaps move on to another settlement." Isaac and Martha exchanged a look. "Miss Voss is a skilled seamstress," Isaac said. "Perhaps Mrs. Holloway at the general store could use her help." Ian seemed to consider this. "Mrs. Holloway is leaving for Denver next week to care for her ailing sister. She's been looking for someone to mind the store." He paused, studying Bianca. "But you need a place to stay. The boarding house is full with those railroad surveyors," Martha said with a frown. Ian shifted his weight, looking uncomfortable. "I have a spare cabin on my property. It's small, but it would provide shelter until you find something more suitable." Bianca looked up in surprise. "That's very kind, Mr. Reynolds, but I couldn't possibly, it's sitting empty," he said with a shrug. "Been that way since my ranch hand Thomas got married and moved to town. It's nothing fancy, but it's clean and dry." Martha brightened. "That's perfect. And it's only a mile from town, so you could easily walk to work at the store." Bianca felt overwhelmed by their kindness but also wary of accepting charity from strangers. "I wouldn't want to impose." "It's not imposing if I'm offering," Ian said matter-of-factly. "Besides, I could use the help. I've been meaning to get my accounts in order, and Isaac mentioned you're educated." "I am," Bianca confirmed. "My father was an accountant. He taught me his trade, though few in Boston were willing to entrust their books to a woman." Ian nodded, as if this settled matters. "Then it's an arrangement that benefits us both. You'll have lodging, and I'll have someone to sort through the mess of numbers I've been avoiding." Bianca looked to Isaac and Martha, who both nodded encouragingly. With few options and even less money, she realized this unexpected offer might be her best hope. "Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. I accept your generous proposal." Ian nodded briskly. "I'll fetch your trunk from the stagecoach office. We can head to my ranch before sundown." As Ian left to retrieve her belongings, Bianca felt a strange mix of relief and apprehension. This wasn't the future she had traveled so far to claim, but perhaps it was the beginning of something else entirely. The ride to Ian's ranch was mostly silent. Bianca sat beside him on the wagon bench, acutely aware of his presence. He wasn't conventionally handsome like Isaac, whose features were symmetrical and pleasing. Ian's face was more rugged, with a strong jaw and a small scar near his right eyebrow. His hands were calloused from hard work, and his demeanor was reserved to the point of appearing gruff. "Have you been in Wyoming territory long, Mr. Reynolds?" Bianca asked, attempting to break the silence. 7 years, he replied. "Came west after the war." "The Civil War?" He nodded. "Fought for the Union. Afterward, I couldn't stomach going back to Pennsylvania. Too many ghosts." Bianca understood more than he might have guessed. "My father felt similarly after my mother passed. Boston held too many memories for him." Ian glanced at her briefly before returning his attention to the road. "Is that why you agreed to be a mail-order bride? To escape memories?" "Partly," she admitted. "But also for practical reasons." My father died last year, leaving me with debts and few prospects. A seamstress's wage barely covers lodging and food in Boston. And you thought marrying a stranger was preferable? There was no judgment in his tone, only curiosity, so Bianca answered honestly. I thought building a new life with someone seeking the same might be preferable to slowly drowning in a city that had no place for me. Ian considered this, then nodded. Fair enough. They crested a hill, and Bianca caught her first glimpse of the Reynolds ranch. It was larger than she expected, a main house constructed of sturdy logs, a large barn, several corrals, and a bunkhouse. In the distance, she could see a smaller cabin, likely her new home. It's beautiful, she said sincerely. Ian looked surprised, then pleased. It's a work in progress. Started with just the main house and 10 head of cattle. Now I've got close to 200 head and 15 horses. You've built something impressive, Bianca observed. Built it alone, mostly, he said, a hint of pride in his voice. Had a foreman for a while, but he moved on last year. Now it's just me, 2 ranch hands who live in the bunkhouse, and Mrs. Winters who comes from town 3 days a week to cook and clean. As they approached the ranch, Bianca noticed a garden beside the main house, with neat rows of vegetables and a small herb patch. It was unexpected on a cattle ranch run by a single man. Do you grow your own food? She asked. Ian nodded. What I can. Wyoming winters are harsh, but summers are good for certain crops. Mrs. Winters puts up preserves to last through the cold months. He guided the wagon to the small cabin and brought the horses to a stop. This is it. Like I said, it's nothing fancy. The cabin was indeed small, just one room with a stone fireplace, a bed frame with a straw-filled mattress, a table with 2 chairs, and a chest for storage. But the windows were intact, the roof appeared solid, and the floor was swept clean. It's perfect, Bianca said, relief washing over her. After months of traveling and uncertainty, having a space to call her own, however temporarily, felt like an extraordinary luxury. Ian carried her trunk inside, setting it at the foot of the bed. There's firewood stacked out back, and the pump for water is between here and the main house. Outhouse is behind the cabin. He paused, looking around the sparse room. I'll have Mrs. Winters bring over some linens and kitchen supplies tomorrow. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. Your kindness is overwhelming. He looked uncomfortable with her gratitude. It's a business arrangement, Miss Voss. Nothing more. Yet as he said it, something in his eyes suggested otherwise. Bianca wondered if he, too, recognized the loneliness that seemed to hover around them both. Of course, she agreed. A mutually beneficial arrangement. Ian nodded, lingering awkwardly by the door. I'll leave you to settle in. Come to the main house for supper in an hour. After that, Mrs. Winters will bring meals when she's here, and I can show you where the smokehouse is for when she's not. After he left, Bianca sat on the edge of the bed, trying to process the dramatic turn her life had taken in just a few hours. She had arrived in Redemption Creek expecting to become a wife by nightfall. Instead, she was alone in a strange cabin, indebted to a taciturn cowboy who seemed as wary of connection as she was desperate for it. She unpacked her few belongings, arranging them carefully in the small space. Her sewing kit and fabric scraps she placed on the table, her father's pocket watch and her mother's Bible on the mantel, and her clothes in the wooden chest. By the time she finished, the cabin felt a bit more like a home. As promised, Ian had a hot meal waiting when she arrived at the main house. The interior surprised her. It was more refined than she expected, with solid furniture, shelves lined with books, and even a few paintings on the walls. You're a reader, she observed, noting the well-worn spines of several volumes. Winter nights are long, he replied, serving her a plate of venison stew and cornbread. Reading passes the time. They ate in companionable silence for a while before Ian spoke again. I'll take you into town tomorrow to speak with Mrs. Holloway about the store. If that suits you. It does, thank you. And when would you like to start on the accounts? Whenever is convenient for you. Perhaps in the evenings after work at the store? Ian nodded. That would be fine. After dinner, he walked her back to the cabin, a lantern lighting their path in the gathering dusk. Crickets chirped in the tall grass, and somewhere in the distance, a coyote called to its pack. It's so quiet here, Bianca remarked. In Boston, there was never silence, even at night. Do you miss it? The city? She considered his question seriously. I miss certain aspects, the libraries, the theaters, the bustle of different people. But I don't miss feeling invisible in a sea of faces, or the constant worry about making ends meet. Ian nodded in understanding. The West isn't easy, but at least here, a person can breathe. Can see the results of their labor in something tangible. They reached her cabin, and Ian hesitated, the lantern casting shadows across his face. If you need anything during the night, don't hesitate to come to the main house. I'm sure I'll be fine, but thank you. He handed her the lantern. Good night, Miss Voss. Good night, Mr. Reynolds. As she closed the door behind her, Bianca felt a strange flutter in her chest. It had been a day of disappointments and unexpected kindnesses, of doors closing and others opening. For the first time since leaving Boston, she allowed herself to consider that perhaps her journey hadn't been in vain after all. The following weeks established a routine for Bianca. Days were spent at the general store, where Mrs. Holloway gratefully handed over the reins before departing for Denver. Evenings were devoted to organizing Ian's accounts, a task that proved more challenging than anticipated due to his haphazard record-keeping. You've been recording expenses by the lunar calendar? Bianca asked incredulously one evening, surrounded by ledgers at Ian's dining table. He looked sheepish. It made sense at the time. Despite the chaos of his bookkeeping, Ian's ranch was impressively profitable. Bianca reorganized his accounts, created proper ledgers, and even identified areas where he could reduce expenses. You're saving me more money than I'm paying you for the work, Ian observed after she showed him her calculations. Bianca smiled. Consider it payment for the cabin. Their evenings together gradually extended beyond account books. They shared meals, discussed books from Ian's collection, and sometimes just sat in comfortable silence by the fire. Bianca learned that beneath his reserved exterior, Ian was thoughtful and intelligent, with dry humor that caught her by surprise. She also discovered he was respected in the community. When townspeople realized she was staying at the Reynolds Ranch, they treated her with a deference that made transactions at the store smoother than expected. Mr. Reynolds helped my William when our farm was failing, Mrs. Peterson explained while purchasing fabric. Didn't ask for anything in return, just showed up with seed for planting and 2 of his men to help with the work. Similar stories emerged from others. Ian, it seemed, was known for quiet generosity that he never mentioned himself. One evening in late September, Bianca was walking home from the store when the sky darkened ominously. Wyoming weather could change in an instant, she had learned, and this storm was rolling in faster than she could make it to the ranch on foot. Rain began to fall in heavy sheets just as she reached the edge of town. Bianca hurried toward an abandoned shed for shelter, but before she could reach it, a wagon appeared through the downpour. Get in! Ian called, reining the horses to a stop beside her. Soaked and shivering, Bianca climbed onto the seat beside him. He immediately wrapped a thick blanket around her shoulders. I was worried when the storm came in, he explained, urging the horses forward. Thought you might get caught in it. You came all this way just to check on me? Bianca asked, touched by his concern. Ian kept his eyes on the rain-slicked road. Couldn't have my accountant catching pneumonia. There was something in his voice, a gentleness beneath the practical words that made Bianca's heart skip. She studied his profile as he guided the horses through the storm, noting the tension in his jaw and the careful way he held the reins, as if her safety was precious cargo. When they reached the ranch, the rain had subsided to a drizzle. Ian insisted on escorting her to her cabin, carrying her bag from the store. You should change into dry clothes, he advised, hesitating at her door. I'll bring some hot coffee from the main house. True to his word, he returned minutes later with 2 steaming mugs. Bianca had changed into her only other dress and was attempting to dry her hair by the small fire she'd built. Ian handed her a mug, his fingers brushing hers briefly. "You're still shivering." "I'll warm up soon," she assured him. He frowned, looking around the cabin with critical eyes. "This place gets drafty when it rains. The chinking between the logs needs repair." He moved to the fireplace and added more wood. "I should have fixed it before you moved in. Please don't worry. It's more than adequate." Ian turned to face her, his expression serious. "You deserve more than adequate, Bianca." It was the first time he had used her given name, and the intimacy of it hung in the air between them. Bianca found herself unable to look away from his intense gaze. "Ian," she began, uncertain what she wanted to say. A crash of thunder broke the moment, making them both jump. Ian cleared his throat and stepped back. "I should let you rest. Tomorrow's Saturday, no need to go to the store. If you'd like, I could show you more of the ranch." "I'd like that very much," Bianca replied, ignoring the flutter in her chest. After he left, she sat by the fire, sipping her coffee and considering the complex man who had unexpectedly become such a significant part of her life. When she'd agreed to marry Isaac Ryder, it had been a practical decision born of necessity. What she felt for Ian Reynolds, however, was something altogether different, something frightening in its intensity and unpredictability. The next morning dawned clear and crisp, the storm having swept away the lingering summer heat. Bianca dressed carefully in her best skirt and blouse, then chided herself for her vanity. Ian had seen her drenched and bedraggled. A nicer outfit wouldn't change his impression of her. He was waiting by the corral when she approached, brushing down a chestnut mare with gentle strokes. "Good morning," he greeted her. "I thought we might ride out to the north pasture. The view from the ridge is worth seeing." Bianca hesitated. "I should confess that I've never ridden a horse before." Ian looked surprised, then smiled. "Well, there's a first time for everything. This is Penny. She's gentle and patient, perfect for beginners." With careful instruction and steady hands, Ian helped Bianca mount the mare. His touch was respectful but firm as he adjusted her posture and showed her how to hold the reins. When he was satisfied that she was secure, he mounted his own horse, a large black gelding named Thunder. They rode at a leisurely pace, Ian keeping close beside her, as Bianca gained confidence. The land opened before them, rolling hills dotted with sagebrush and wildflowers, distant mountains framing the horizon like sentinels guarding the territory. "It's breathtaking," Bianca said as they reached the ridge Ian had mentioned. Below them, cattle grazed in peaceful clusters, while a stream wound its way through the pasture like a silver ribbon. "This is my favorite spot on the ranch," Ian admitted, dismounting and helping Bianca down from Penny. "I come here to think." They sat on a flat rock overlooking the valley, sharing a simple lunch of bread, cheese, and apples that Ian had packed. "May I ask you something?" Bianca ventured after they had eaten. Ian nodded. "Of course. Why haven't you married?" "You're established, respected in the community. Surely there have been opportunities." A shadow crossed his face. "There was someone, once. Elizabeth. We were engaged before the war." He paused, his gaze distant. "I came back different. Haunted." She tried to understand, but how could she? "I couldn't even explain it to myself." "What happened?" "She married a banker from Chicago. They have 3 children now." Ian picked up a small stone, turning it over in his hands. "It was for the best. She deserved happiness, not a man who woke screaming from nightmares." "Do you still have them?" "The nightmares? Less often now," he admitted. "Time and distance help." Bianca gathered her courage. "And what about now? Have you considered marriage again?" Ian looked at her, his blue eyes intense. "I haven't met many women willing to take on a stubborn rancher with too many cattle and not enough sense." "Perhaps you haven't been looking in the right places," Bianca suggested softly. Something shifted in Ian's expression of vulnerability that made him appear younger, less guarded. "Perhaps I haven't." The moment stretched between them, filled with unspoken possibilities. Then Ian stood, offering his hand to help her up. We should head back. Days are getting shorter now that fall's here. As they rode home, Bianca felt a new awareness between them. Something had changed on that ridge. A door had opened, even if either of them was ready to step through it yet. The following week brought an unexpected development. Mrs. Holloway sent word from Denver that she would not be returning to Redemption Creek. Her sister's condition had worsened, and she had decided to sell the store and remain in Colorado. She's offered to sell it to me, Bianca told Ian that evening, still stunned by the proposition. At a fair price, with reasonable terms for payment. Ian looked up from the book he'd been reading. Are you considering it? It seems preposterous. I've only been here a month. And in that month you've increased the store's revenue by 15%, according to your own reports. Bianca paced across the main house's sitting room. But to own a business. As a woman, alone. You wouldn't be the first woman to own a business in these parts, Ian pointed out. Mrs. Winters owns the bakery in town. And Miss Sullivan runs the telegraph office. Still, the investment would be significant. Ian closed his book and set it aside. I could loan you the money. Bianca stopped pacing. I couldn't accept that. It would be a business loan, with interest. He clarified. I've been looking for ways to diversify my investments. A general store with a competent owner seems like a sound opportunity. You truly believe I could succeed? I believe you could do anything you set your mind to, Bianca. His faith in her was overwhelming. No one, not even her father, had ever expressed such confidence in her abilities. I'll consider it, she promised. That night, alone in her cabin, Bianca weighed her options carefully. Owning the store would give her independence and security, things she had sought when agreeing to become a mail-order bride. Yet part of her hesitated, and she knew why. Accepting Ian's loan would tie her future to Redemption Creek, to this land, to him. It would mean admitting that the journey that had brought her west hadn't been a mistake after all, but perhaps a roundabout path to where she was meant to be. By morning, she had made her decision. She would accept Mrs. Holloway's offer and Ian's loan, but insist on formal terms that protected them both. It was a step toward building the life she wanted, one of her own making, not defined by necessity or circumstance. When she told Ian her decision over breakfast, his smile was worth all the uncertainty she had wrestled with. Redemption Creek just got a lot more interesting, he said, raising his coffee cup in a toast. To the new proprietress of Holloway's General Store. October brought cooler temperatures and preparations for winter. Bianca officially took ownership of the store, renaming it Voss General Goods. Business thrived under her management, particularly after she added a selection of ready-made garments she sewed in the evenings. Meanwhile, her relationship with Ian evolved in small, meaningful ways. He began joining her for Sunday dinners at her cabin, bringing provisions from his garden or game from his hunts. She, in turn, surprised him with baked goods and new recipes she tried. Their conversations deepened, touching on hopes and fears they rarely shared with others. One evening in late October, as they sat by the fire in Ian's home, he broached a subject that had been on his mind. Winter's coming, he said, watching the flames dance. This cabin, your cabin, it's not properly insulated for Wyoming winters. Bianca looked up from her mending. I've been adding rags to the gaps between logs. It's helped with the draft. It won't be enough when the temperature drops below zero. The pipes will freeze, and so will you. Ian's expression was grave. You should consider alternative arrangements for winter. Such as? He hesitated, then forged ahead. You could stay in the main house. There are 2 spare bedrooms. It would be perfectly proper. Bianca set aside her sewing. People would talk. People always talk, Ian countered. I'm more concerned with your safety than gossip. And what about your reputation? Ian's expression softened. Bianca, I think we both know that my concern for you goes beyond that of a landlord for a tenant, or even a friend for a friend. Her heart quickened at his words. Ian, Let me finish, he said gently. These past months, getting to know you, seeing your strength and determination, it's made me realize what I've been missing. What I've been avoiding. He moved from his chair to kneel before her, taking her hands in his. I'm not good with flowery words or grand gestures. But I know what I feel when I'm with you, and what I feel when you're not near. I know that I want to build something with you, Bianca, something lasting. Tears welled in Bianca's eyes. Are you asking me to marry you? I'm asking if you might consider it. He amended, his voice thick with emotion. Not out of necessity or convenience, but because we choose each other. Because we've found something worth holding on to. Bianca looked at their joined hands, his calloused and strong, hers smaller but equally capable. Hands that had both known work and hardship, that had built lives from difficult circumstances. When I left Boston, she said softly, I thought I was traveling toward a predetermined future. When that future collapsed, I felt lost. But now I see that journey brought me exactly where I needed to be. She squeezed his hands. To you? Ian's eyes searched hers. Is that a yes? Bianca nodded, a smile breaking through her tears. Yes, Ian Reynolds. I will marry you. He pulled her into his arms then, his embrace tentative at first, then firmer as she leaned into him. When their lips met, it felt like coming home, like finding the place where she truly belonged. They were married on Thanksgiving Day in the small church in Redemption Creek. Isaac and Martha Ryder attended, their presence a testament to how life's disappointments sometimes lead to unexpected blessings. The entire town celebrated with them, recognizing that the union of the taciturn rancher and the determined Eastern bride was a love story worth honoring. Winter came, as Ian had predicted, with bitter cold and heavy snow. But Bianca faced it from the warmth of the main house, now their home together, where each evening ended with shared meals and conversations by the fire, and each morning began in the circle of her husband's arms. Spring brought new beginnings. Bianca's store continued to prosper, and the ranch flourished under their combined management. By summer, she had news to share with Ian, news that brought tears to his eyes and a tenderness to his touch that she treasured. A baby, he whispered in awe, his hand gentle on her still flat stomach. Our child. A new chapter in our story, Bianca agreed, covering his hand with hers. As they stood together on the ridge that had become their special place, watching the sunset paint the Wyoming sky in brilliant hues of gold and crimson, Bianca reflected on the journey that had brought her west. What had begun as a desperate gamble had transformed into a life richer than she could have imagined. What are you thinking? Ian asked, his arms secure around her waist. Bianca leaned into his strength. I'm thinking about arrivals and departures. About how sometimes the most beautiful destinations are the ones we never planned to reach. Ian pressed a kiss to her temple. I'm glad your journey brought you here, even if it wasn't where you intended to go. So am I, Bianca replied, turning in his arms to face him. So very glad. As they made their way back to the ranch, to their home, Bianca felt a profound gratitude for the twist of fate that had seemingly derailed her plans. Her journey west had not ended in tears as she had feared on that first disappointing day. Instead, it had led her to a love more genuine and a life more fulfilling than any she could have arranged through letters and promises. In the years that followed, as their family grew and their bonds deepened, Bianca and Ian would often remind each other of how close they came to never meeting, of how easily their paths might have diverged. It made each day together more precious, each challenge more manageable, and each joy more profound. For Bianca Voss, now Bianca Reynolds, arriving too late had, paradoxically, meant arriving exactly when she needed to, exactly where she belonged.